My name is Adam. This is Wojtek. We came visit you from Concept. Concept is an organization which is rapidly prototyping new ideas, and we're putting a special focus on time. We call it like a four-dimensional prototyping. A few months ago, we've met Jeff McCaleb in San Jose, which gave us access to Ripple, the source code. And since we started looking at it, we realized that it have a huge potential to become the worldwide payment standard. But before we go any further into discussing Ripple, maybe let's go back to the very beginning.
Okay, you will have to press, yeah. So everything began like 13 millennia before Christ. We'll be talking about brief history of money in general. And 20 millennia before Christ, actually something very, very important happened. Something that we can call goods or barter emerged, and this was due to domestication of plants and animals. Then we had something also very, very important. We can estimate that about 1 millennium before Christ, or 600 years before Christ, first gold coins were used in ancient Lydia in Greece. So coins were manufactured for the first time somewhere in China, like 2000 years before Christ, but they weren't used for exchanging the goods. They weren't used as money. They were only some kind of prestigious sign for kings and Caesars. So the next thing that money did was generally encouraging the democratization. So in Greece, near to Lydia, money encouraged the democratization of politics, where old privileges were abolished and eligibility for public office became based on landed wealth. Democracy arose in cities with market economies and strong currencies. What does it mean? In general, money did do something very, very important. It was a universal way of exchanging goods, and that was accepted very easily by people around the world back then, like 1,000 years before Christ. And it was promoting the connecting of big cities and creating the market routes, Silk Road, for example. And it was in general, encouraging the big urban areas to grow. Second thing was general emerging of the money all over the world, and as I said, it was empowering the cities, the rise of the cities, the big urban areas. And very slowly it was diminishing the role of barter, and coins were generally used more and more. So somewhere around 800 or 900, somewhere around Charles the Great, people and farmers learned how to yield more from their fields due to the crop rotation from 1, 2 to 3. It has created some may say like about 50 or 60% or surplus yield from their fields. So we have 800 year, and farmers began to have more that they need. So they started selling those goods. And it was very, very much like that from 900 to 900, from 1950 to 1950, when we can move forward and describe this period of time, like development of feudalism, development of capitalism, and everything was, of course, based on gold standard. Money was generally described by, I am willing to accept such amount of gold coins for my goods that I believe will be sufficient for others for those goods. So this motto was very, very important principle for first also both feudalism and capitalism exchanges in big cities, of course. So 1971 comes after the Second World War. The gold standard was created, and in 1971, unfortunately or fortunately, Richard Nixon suspends the gold standard, which the New World Order, as we call it, created and founded in 1950 after the World War. So 70s and 90s are generally the time of the regulation of the market, first credit cards, first fast transactions occur, some time currencies and alternative currencies are created, but they generally never gain popularity. And here we are. Currently, the stats say that we have about 10K credit card transactions per second. Average transaction fee in Poland is quite high. Average transaction fee in EU is almost 2 times less. And we have about 19K ATMs in Poland. The sad thing about all papers and money produced by people is about 6 times more than we really produce. We can estimate, but this is a very rough estimation. We cannot tell for sure, but we have probably generated few times more than we really are able to produce with our hands. So yeah, the main problem in the scope of our presentation today is Visa and MasterCard, which are here because there are probably 5 or 6 origins of this fact. First origin is first cause will be regulatory. Market is generally highly regulated, and Visa and MasterCard emerged somewhere in 60s or 50s before they gained popularity. So they were there before the deregulation in 70s and in 80s. And the second thing would be political cause of their existence. They are lobbying the scene because they are quite big companies. And the thing that is connected with this fact is the duopoly of MasterCard and Visa. They both have something like more than 50% of the whole credit card market. So their incentive is to keep Visa and MasterCard duopoly strong. There's a technical problem. They are quite proficient in what they do. They are quite secure, and they have decades of experience in processing the transactions. But about the security and technical things we'll be saying further. And platform. This is probably the biggest reason of all. They have the network effect. Generally, we are here, and Visa has more like 50. Visa and MasterCard have more than 50% of the market, and it's quite hard to change the world when every shop out there has Visa and MasterCard terminal. And going further, 2009.
Before we progress, maybe I should ask, how many of you already heard about Bitcoins at the moment? Great, okay. How many of you actually, don't be shy, how many of you actually used Bitcoins? All right, that's
great.
That's interesting.
That's great.
That's a big difference. Okay, so 2009.
So 2009, here comes the Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes open source. There was very big buzz in early adopters networks and generally in internet about Bitcoin. There was quite big speculation. What Bitcoin is, how does it work, how can people steal Bitcoins or earn Bitcoins, and this idea of mining Bitcoins was crazy for people. But we will generally not touch this topic very deeply. Too much. We will have to just state that Bitcoin is math-regulated cryptocurrency, which tend to be quite secure but have some flaws, which we'll be talking about later. And current size of the market is quite high, as you see, because it's $1.5 billion right now. This is the stats from yesterday when we were polishing the presentation, probably.
Actually, from today.
Actually, from today, yeah. And we have 11 millions of Bitcoins in the market.
With another 10 to be mined still.
Exactly, because Bitcoins have this strange, from the first side, a strange idea of having limited amount, which is proposed probably in end of possibility of mining Bitcoins is probably 2033 or something like this. Yeah, that's
kind of estimated time, but
yeah. So generally there will be only 21 million Bitcoins. So the deflation will be infinite. So we have 2010 low energy Bluetooth introduction.
Which is very important for point-of-sale systems, which now are emerging.
Exactly. You probably heard of some low-energy Bluetooth devices out there. In 2011, we have Litecoin, then we have PP coin.
But if anyone wants to mine Litecoins, because you can still use the graphic cards to do it.
As you see, the market of cryptocurrencies is flowering. In 2013, we have TerraCoin, Feathercoin, and many, many more. This was 2013 and probably earlier for some engineers and people that are developing those currencies, was the year that they came out with some kind of vision that there may be a bigger, higher layer of abstraction over those layers. Why shouldn't we create something higher than those Bitcoins? And generally, Ripple goes open source.
This year.
Yeah. Adam will continue.
So it's interesting because if you remember, the MTGOX, the biggest exchange at the moment, which currently holds over 70% of all Bitcoins, actually was started by Jet Micallef, which was sold pretty quickly. And Jet solely focused on Ripple payment network since then. We started working on it a few months ago with the first Polish gateway. We started experiment with it, and we were amazed how stable it becomes month after month. And I'm pretty sure it will go open source this year. A lot of people are waiting for this to happen, and it may definitely change the way we see money and the way we see the payments, as it solves a lot of Bitcoin problems. It doesn't solve all of them, but it solves a couple. It creates a few more, but we're gonna get to that later.
And we will just show you what are the Bitcoin's problems and how Ripple solves it.
Okay, so why to do Ripple? Why actually we should do it?
Yeah, so currently we have about 500 billion of electronic transactions per year, which take, and this is sick, 36 trillion hours for everybody to wait for them. This is quite a lot of time. For humanity. This is about 72 hours for electronic transactions to clear. So those transactions take tens of billions of USD in fees, and they run on slow, expensive and disconnected infrastructure, which is quite hard to tell why we are still there, why still banks are operating those monies on those disconnected networks, while we are able to do it ourselves because we have internet. So general overview over Ripple, general buzzwords that you can meet out there will be that Ripple is generally a multi-currency network.
It's probably the most important factor.
This is
actually,
most
I
important
will show it
factor.
later. Currently, I can hold multiple currencies in the bitcoins. In
Yeah.
Ripple, I can hold zlotys, dollars, euros, and I can also hold bitcoins and Litecoins in the future. And actually, currency you can imagine, all in my one wallet.
Ripple is not another currency. It's just an abstraction layer for trading money in secure way.
It is a network protocol to hold the money.
Yeah.
Any currency you can imagine. It's so some people say this is a competitor to Bitcoin. It sure may be as seen as yet another cryptocurrency solution, but it's definitely designed to hold Bitcoin. As currently, a lot of my friends are keeping all their Bitcoins actually in Ripple, as they believe it's the most secure way.
Yeah, exactly.
In Bitstamp and others.
Of course, it's math-based, mathematically regulated, not government regulated or institutionally regulated. The third asset is that it's distributed. Anyone can become a trader, merchant, or gateway.
And it's not a full. It's another. You don't need to have a full blockchain, which is also important. At the
Yeah.
moment in Bitcoins, I mean, you have SVP, but actually, what you really have is you have a full.
If you want to use Bitcoins, you generally have to
download the full ledger,
download
which is not how much
whole
work,
network, and then you
takes a
can
lot of
trade.
space.
This is crazy. So Ripple doesn't have these problems. It's quite scalable. Currently, as for scalability, it takes about 2 to 4 seconds to send some money from one point to another. And if we had, I don't know, 10,000 gateways, it won't take more than 10 seconds, probably ever, is the asymptotic algorithm here.
So how it really works? How much of you actually really heard about Ripple before this presentation?
Hopefully none.
Okay, so before we understand how Ripple works, it's crucial so we understand how we today treat money and how important the trust it is, because Ripple is very much based on trust. So in this little diagram, so maybe not very beautiful, but you can we try to explain how it today works. So let's say I'm a payer, Wojtek is payee, and I want to send him like, I don't know, 10 zlotys. So actually what really happened...
We are exchanging a worthless paper.
Yeah. Actually, what we do, I'm going to log into my bank probably, and I'm going to actually send him 10 zlotys. But what really happens is when I log into the bank, I see that I have, let's say, 20 zlotys in it. I don't have that money in my hand. I actually trust my bank that actually it holds that money for me. I have no guarantee that it actually have all that money. I can only trust this bank that he have that money.
Actually, you trust your bank that you can go there and take this money. That this money
really exists. That the money really have the value. So I have to trust the bank. At the moment, all the banks are fighting for our attention, and we select finally to trust one. But also, what happens is actually I trust that P&Ls have actually any value, and that's how actually the bank trusts the government. So it holds that money, the P&Ls, zlotys. And actually, because the bank trusts the government and actually can hold the zlotys in the bank, we learn that actually, okay, we can trade the zlotys, we can use the zlotys. So actually, the bank actually extends the trust to the government. So actually, us trusting the bank, automatically we're trusting the zlotys. So I'm trusting the bank that it holds my money, and I also trust the government that the government holds that.
So in other words, trusting that 1 zloty is worth 1 zloty is trusting your government that he's backing it.
And the bank that they have it, which is very important. And then I can really send you that 10 zlotys based on those two factors. This is very important. So how it works in Ripple? Well, in Ripple, the way it works, any gateway can actually issue the money, which is pretty a bit confusing, but how it really works is if let's say Gatoget will become the Polish gateway, me and Wojtek, we trust this gateway that it can hold the zlotys, or any other network. You can figure out your own currency. You can call it potatoes. And I can send it to Wojtek, and we both trust that it have a value.
So more generally, we are removing the government from this
We can remove
circle.
the government.
There's no government, and gateway, which was the bank in the previous scheme, maybe anyone. You can be a gateway.
And you can have a distributed system. So a lot of gateways have actually copy of every transaction. So here, if I drop the grenade in one of the banks, you may lose all your money, but not in Ripple, because that network is really distributed. It's a mesh network. So your money should be much more secure. And it's like, so in future, you can imagine that actually banks, if that's protocol will become popular, that the banks actually will become gateways eventually, should become the gateways. That's natural choice for them. And you can imagine the money being exchanged between different gateways and different currencies, and so you can actually trust the gateway that it holds the money for you. So today I need to like send 10 zlotys, the gateway keeps the 10 zlotys, and since then I can start trading zlotys around the network. And it's the zlotys which are issued by a gateway, and that a gateway actually guarantees that this money have value and that you can use it.
And what actually Ripple is based on is this trust, but it's not a word or just let's say light trust or saying or something. This is the trust that is actually digital. You are granting the trust from one peer to another over the Ripple network, which is a transaction also. Yeah. So yeah, proceed.
Now, what is also very important is Ripple have its own currency. It's called XRP. It's only being initially invented to restrict people from spamming the network. So it's very cheap, because actually at the moment it takes, if I send, let's say 10 zlotys to Wojtek, the full charge I have for this transaction is 1 XRP, which currently is about like 4 groszy. So I pay 4 groszy to send.
Less than grosz, actually, in my opinion.
It's pretty cheap.
I don't know.
Anyway, so it's 4 groszy, but what it means changes. Is basically it changes, and but I will keep it low. It's only not to allow people to spam the network. But what it actually happens at the moment, if I send money, I don't know, to the United Kingdom, I pay additionally £25, and it takes 3 to 5 working days to make that happen. Now, if I send it over Ripple, and we already done it, it takes physically 2 to 4 seconds, and I pay 4 groszy. It's a big change. Even if all current systems, it's amazingly quick. It's very secure because it has copies like Bitcoins on every other gateway. And it doesn't fight with regulators as Bitcoin does, because it actually, it's a bit centralized, you can say, because every gateway actually holds that money, probably kept it in a bank or Bitcoin somewhere. But because of that, it actually have a more chance to survive within the next probably 3 to 7 years.
Bitcoin is a freaky money for freaky person, freaky people. Well, that is, I'm saying from the bank point of view, that won't be accepted. Well, and Ripple is a good candidate here.
Well, I do believe that Bitcoins will eventually become very popular, and they will. The way I see Bitcoins is like a internet gold. You can only mine certain amount. There's no more gold in the world, and then people will try to collectibles. Eventually, I do believe that the price of Bitcoin will be $500 plus, and I can make bets on it. Probably maybe even over 1,000. And then, like Litecoin is like internet silver. So, and what is very important here, it is a network of trust. So the money and the banking could become personal again. Since this whole project will become open source, the whole money will go to this project ever make. It's actually sponsored by like Google Ventures and China Venture Capital, which is very strange. Those two separate parts of the world are investing in it. It actually enables to make this a very much a social project, because it will be open source. Everyone can use it. Everyone can fork its own version. Banks can use its own version of it. Everyone could see it through that there's no cheating here. If the XRPs are taken, this 4 groszy, as we said, this 4 groszy is being destroyed. That money is not being sent to some Ripple owners. There's not something like Ripple owners. It's all like an Open Coin Foundation, which gonna develop it
and
open source it, maintain it a bit, and leave it to the people. So actually, this potentially could completely destroy the MasterCard and a Visa duopoly. And hopefully, and that will enable tons of features and possibilities to the both web and mobile world, as you can imagine. Because you never again, and actually, any at the moment venture which tries to do internet payments or send money via email, like even Google at the moment, Google Wallet, they always have to charge this 1.5%. or sell 7%. So they always have to do that, and it's a huge pain. The only reason you have to do it because the only people who actually make these transactions possible are Visa and MasterCard, and even actually eBay actually is forced to kind of use it. That's why eBay is so expensive. eBay tried to do it right, but because they haven't made this open source, they haven't made the social standard, they failed. So in today's world, the people are ready to start using the open standard, and I think Ripple have a pretty big chance to become one within the next few years.
Let's move forward, yeah.
So this is how the Ripple network looks like, actually. It's a connection with a lot of trust. Maybe you have time, we're going to show you how it works live.
And probably we didn't say that the most interesting thing. Ripple is actually working right now, and people are sending money, using money, exchanging Bitcoins, using it a lot in Israel, Poland, United States, and all over the world. There are many transactions.
We can see increasing loads month over month, so it becomes popular especially after the last 2 months.
It's not yet open source. You have to ask OpenCoin for getting the source and having your own gateway. But generally, it will be open source probably like.
I cannot really say, but
before
this
the
year,
end of this year. And we can talk about trust now.
Yeah. Also, this is how it looks like in the wallet. Disregard the money because it's like test one, but what it really is, you can see is here, we have a zlotys, we have dollars, we can Ripple. I can easily have here Bitcoins, Litecoins, any actual currency I want, which is very convenient. This is actually already beta working software. You actually, if you register to Gatogate, we're probably going to be releasing some updates very soon to gatogate.com, and it's still very much a prototype. But if anyone wants to have access of beta today, please see us afterwards, and we can show you how it works and how you can use it even today with your friends. So we're gonna be one of the first gateways, if it works, to actually enable Polish zlotys to be issued, which is very exciting. So some facts. Why it's better than Bitcoins or fiat?
It's quite hard to talk about Ripple, Bitcoins, and fiat, which is of course PLNs, USDs, and all those.
Just remember, the
real money.
The Ripple is like a container. You need to imagine it like a container to transport this money very cheaply and very convenient.
So as we said before, Ripple has its own currency, which is XRP. We will be talking during talking about this table, about this chart. We will be talking in terms of both Ripple as a protocol and Ripple as a currency. So the first thing, cannot be stolen, lost, or frozen. Generally, Bitcoins are both Bitcoins and Ripple are quite hard to steal, because what Bitcoin is just a file, a wallet.
But not hard to lose.
Generally, if you keep it, no one Bitcoins can take it from you. Fiat, there are many ways. For example, your government can disappear and your money disappears, and this happens all over the world all the time. Second thing is allows indirect and immediate transfer of value. So none of those systems, besides Ripple, actually allows that. People say that BTC is quite fast. Generally, yesterday about 11 p.m. I have scheduled a transfer in Bitcoins, and it hasn't arrived as I checked it 8 o'clock. So it can take from 10 minutes of minimum, if you pay, of course, the Bitcoin network, up to like 6 days or something.
Well, it will improve. It depends how much you pay.
Of course, it will improve, yeah, but it's not quite sure for me why should I wait for a transaction. It's quite unnatural for me. So no bank or financial institution influence this currency. It's quite obvious that Bitcoins and Ripple are quite independent. Ripple, there should be an asterisk there, because Ripple is not yet independent. It will be open sourced. Cannot be inflated, devalued over time. So it's quite hard to tell whether BTC will be devalued. For sure, it will deflate, because there's a fixed amount of BTCs that will be mined in time. But generally, nothing influences BTC or Ripple. So it cannot be controlled in any way. Distributed authority, no single point of failure. So Of course, fiat has single point of failures. As I said, again, it's quite abstract in quite stable democracies like Poland or any other European or Western democracies. There are no single point of failures. But look, for example, for Kenya. Kenya is or Ghana is quite young country that is actually not using real money. They have a big experiment of using short text messages for paying for everything, because it's the only currency that actually they believe in. So it's quite hardcore there. Susceptible to double spending attack. Double spending attack is quite complex technical thing here, and BTC is susceptible in some ways. Ripple is actually not susceptible, but it also has some minor problems, because generally transactions are irreversible, and this is the principle. And in fiat, it turns out that you can go schedule a transfer, go to a bank, show them some documents, and just reverse the transfer. It's possible right now. So susceptible to 51% attack. 51% attack is something that BTC is known for for the biggest flow of this currency. If you gain control over the 51% of the nodes in the network, you can reverse the transactions, create fake transactions. You generally can take away people's money. So this is the worst problem there. Ripple is susceptible, not yet susceptible, because there are not too many gateways right now, but provided that we have something like 500 gateways and probably like thousands in the future, it will be completely susceptible to this. And fiat is not an issue here. Very low or no usage fees, of course. As we said before, fiat is probably something like 1 or 2%. They always take 1 or 2% of your money from you. And BTC and Ripple are, if you want, the BTC may be free and Ripple may be free. If you want the transaction to clear faster in BTC, you can pay them. Anonymous purchases. So this is quite complex again. There is no anonymity in fiat. There may be anonymity in
if you
Ripple,
try hard.
Yeah,
and in bitcoins.
And in bitcoins,
not without the
yeah
additional efforts.
So irreversible transactions, BTC.
Because actually both are, because everyone keeps the copy. Both are
Yeah.
completely opposite to anonymous, because actually every single transaction is recorded in the blockchain. So it's almost the opposite.
Yeah. So irreversible transactions, you actually can reverse transaction in BTC. Nodes that do that, and it will be reversed as soon as you want to if you gain 51% of the nodes, if you gain control over the 51% of the network. So the last thing is distributed exchange, probably the biggest flow of BTC and fiat. BTC is actually designed for distributed exchange.
Well,
there's no problem
at the moment.
There's no problem with distributed exchange, but actually there is only one very big monopolist on the BTC exchange market, which is mtgox.com, and they have probably
over
much
70%.
more than 70% of the market right now.
A lot of people are facing the problems now with withdrawing
This
the money,
wouldn't
for
be a
example.
problem, but this is another single point of failure, so it's
It's actually a
not
lot of
good
people
for us
believe
right
that
now. Yeah.
that there's no point using exchanges with bitcoins. It's better just to buy them off the street, because you cannot really trust them anymore. They collect so much money of you just to secure themselves that we cannot even really talk about anonymity anymore, and they kind of destroying the whole concept.
So we have 12 minutes. Adam
we
will
have a bit more
tell about about future right now.
What happens next? That's actually very important questions. We can only assume what's going to happen in the next few years, but it's very important. As you are developers, you actually can jump on it and actually try to help to make it happen, both on open source sense and actually writing the commercial software. So I do believe that actually Bitcoin is slowly going to lose an amenity battle over time. That's what currently happens. It's actually funny is it's actually much better regulated in Europe than in the United States, even if it's much more common in the United States, but it's already causing the problems there. And I think the problems are going to continue to arise. So it will have problems. What actually Ripple does is very interesting. They took a totally opposite path. They're actually very open. They're very official. What they work now is we can assume, and I think we're pretty confident it's happening. They're starting to sign up banks actually to start using Ripple, and you can imagine how big effect that may have. Since they're gonna actually sign up 2 banks using it, and 2 banks they can use it because one of the reasons it's going to be as amazingly cheap for them to start exchanging the money. All they need to do is to integrate with it, and Ripple already have a great API. So since you have 2 banks start exchanging the money, what's going to happen? The other banks will have to start using Ripple because they're not going to be competitive.
And about the API, I would like to say one word, because Ripple is generally designed for having a very fast, very robust, very, very good and well documented API that, of course, is written in WebSocket protocol, so it's quite reliable and fast.
Yeah. And we cannot say too much, but we see some movements even on the network, which even indicates that already some banks are trying it. This really probably gonna happen because so far I cannot see any reason why not. I think 2014, maybe even earlier, you should expect like a snowball effect of banks using it. Eventually, in 3 years' time, you may all be using it without even noticing it. Suddenly, your charge is going to drop dramatically in your bank, especially international ones. But on the behind, there will be Ripple network working.
This was actually the pain in the ass behind the VoIP network and VoIP protocol. Everybody thought in one point of time that we will just drop all the analog phones and we'll switch to...
I love my analog phone, I'm sorry.
Oh, you are early adopter. So generally everybody was thinking that it will happen, that we will just have an IP phones, but it never happened. So what the telcos do? They generally switched like 80% of their network to VoIP. So you are using VoIP, not having a VoIP telephone. Yeah.
Another great important factor is like when I initially got excited about Bitcoin, which was almost a year ago, I was very excited about the idea of contracts, which is really in few words just if this then that for money. You can imagine the scenario where let's say you die and you sign up, you're like a last will on
Bright
the internet.
future.
And the way it works in United States and some states, when you die, they put you on a special list, which is online, they do that. So actually you can create a little cron, or we can create a little task, which actually keep checking that list. And since your, a peso arrives there, your ID arrives there, you're dead. Actually, the network can automatically distribute your money to your children, for example. There is no third party needed. And there's tons of other examples and bets and etc., which actually automatically going to resolve the problems without any third parties. A contract is an amazing thing. It can, and
it would be called mathematically regulated debt.
And a lot of people actually were very excited about having those things in Bitcoins. The colored coins may be a solution, but what happens most of the times, I see a lot of people being frustrated that actually core dev of Bitcoins is much more focused on sorting the security problems and actually fighting with and being very conservative about it. Where actually people are moving to Bitcoins since they have very good developers now, when they try to develop those really great ideas, and I think even now they're working on it, and we can even expect maybe earlier than 2014 that this thing's going to be launched. So we can have if this then that for our own money, which is a great API. I can only, I think very quickly will appear on ifthisthenThat.com, and
I think
this will open a lot of possibilities.
Most difficulty in understanding Ripple is that it generally will be an API for money. It's probably the best.
And which each one of you can access. It's that simple. At the moment, to integrate with the bank, believe me, we try that. It takes months to negotiate the deals, APIs, and test it, sandboxes.
You probably did that.
So this will definitely solve the problem. Now, another thing which is really great is something it's called Ripple Federation Protocol. It sounds weird, but what it really is actually enables you to send money via email. It works very similar to the DNS protocol. And you can actually send money to Wojtek@gatogate.com or adam@gatogate.com without necessarily putting these huge hashes into the mobile or scanning QR codes, which are no longer really going to be
probably
used.
you will be in some point of future able to send money to Wojtek@facebook.com, but
Well,
we
we're
will
going to get that later, but
get to that later.
Yeah, but this is very like to happen. And you know, in Bitcoins, well, they keep talking about it. In Ripple, they're doing it. The first part is already done. We already actually have an implementation of it. It works. So we can expect by 2013 actually this to be launched with probably open sourcing it at the same time. So that's going to be pretty amazing. So all your email addresses could potentially or your gateway's email addresses could become your addresses for sending money. And this happens straight there. And anyone integrates with it. So any platform you put your email address could be automatically your bank receiving address. So if I want to tip you, you give me a bottle of water, I can just quickly find you and send you the money because I have your email address usually. I sometimes even find people by their email addresses, not by their names, so in address books. So this really happens. I do believe by 2014 we're definitely going to have more than 30 live Ripple gateways. At the moment, like about 10 is operating. And I think by the end of 2013, I can bet there will be more than 100. And then it's gonna. Once there's 100 there, the network gonna behave extremely stable, and I think we're gonna. Then it will be probably almost certain it will succeed. So what will happen next 2 years? I think that once, like as I said, if those two banks gonna start using it, we can easily expect that a lot of banks will have to jump on it because they cannot, be competitive in other way.
Generally, they will lose money.
Yeah, so they will have to jump on it. Can see internet exchanges adopting Ripple because for them is a great deal. Probably like Polish services like Valutomat or Chinkcha should already start looking into it if they're not yet. And microtransactions changing everything. I mean, I said the publishing industry because I believe that within the next 2 or 3 years, we never again will have to pay for a book. We will pay for chapters, or we pay for articles, not for magazines. You probably end up. I read that are specific articles, so I pay for that one. I don't have to pay for the whole magazine, even if I read just 10%. And why is that? Because at the moment, the average transaction online is about £20. It's the reason why it's set up there because it's the compromise between the trust you have to the internet and actually and you cannot really sell cheaper things because of the MasterCard and Visa again because it's just too pricey. It takes too much of a percentage of that, like $5 price. So actually having so cheap payments, you can imagine you opening the whole range between £0 and £20. This is a huge market,
and probably 0 and 1 pound.
I can sell you this one today, and you can pay me for each of my smile, everything. It's going to be amazing. So this is a huge change. You can jump on it today, especially for mobile with this ubiquity we're having today. So you can react instantly to anything which happens. That's what we're talking to you today. Now, I do believe that also between next 5 years, one of the main social networks probably should become on a gateway. You can imagine that companies like Facebook or Twitter could actually start using it. What's going to happen? Your Facebook, let's say, your Facebook, like Wojtek@facebook.com, will become your receiving address. And since they have a huge trust of people, they could become a gateway means bank. This is probably one of the best way to monetize the huge social networks. They could become a bank. I mean, this is just an idea. Maybe I'm crazy, but if I were them, I would seriously look into it. Because if Ripple succeeds, that would be the best choice of them to happen. And the first one who jumps on it potentially can lead the way.
And this quite fits the way that Facebook is working right now and functioning right now, because Facebook is quite basically based on trust. People know each other, and they have trust that they can,
friends,
for example, share their information between themselves. So this trust is quite similar to the trust that you are granting people
or Google Plus.
Or Google Plus. You are granting the same trust while using Ripple networks, almost the same trust. It's not the same. Of course, sharing information is not the same as sharing trust for money. It resembles this scheme.
I do believe that the idea that one of the major social networks becoming a Ripple gateway means bank, so-called bank. It's a pretty probable. It sounds crazy, but I think it's pretty probable scenario. 500 plus Ripple gateways. I mean, I do believe that will happen. That's just this grows incrementally. It's crazy. So this happens. So let's fast forward a bit, like 2020, and we do it quite a lot sometimes. It's pretty interesting. So how do you believe that will work? I mean, first of all, within the next 7 years, I think something like global citizens will arise and will be much more important. At the moment, really, the big corporations are using globalization, but more and more single individuals are using benefits of it. And we will be selecting, the borders will mean less and less to us. We will be selecting a country we want to live in because of the lifestyle or because of our sentiments. And
currencies will stop having nationality.
At the moment, the currencies become a problem. I need to always set up a bank in that country, in order not to pay big fees for credit cards, which are much higher internationally, etc. So you can imagine the situation. I have my Ripple account with multiple currencies. I probably everyone going to trade it a bit, and let's say I'm in Poland and I run out of zlotys, but I have euros, and actually my wallet automatically converts my left euros to zlotys.
And this is actually here. We don't have to do it. Ripple generally supports it right now.
Ripple already supports that. So actually I can have a lot of currencies and use it as one. And Ripple actually already does an exchanges on the best rate currently having online.
And
so actually people who are selling and buying different exchanges.
Extreme situation would be like that. You have Japan yens. Your shop only accepts PLNs, but you don't have any connection. Let's say you don't have any euros or nothing, and the transition between those currencies will be automatic.
Yeah,
so
it already happens. So the idea of global citizen will become much more possible, and Ripple can definitely contribute to that. Another thing is that universal distributed bank account, which I think what really Ripple is a distributed, social-based bank account. Also, which is important, XRP, I don't think we can treat it as currency for the next 5 years or more, but eventually it's more than likely that if the government's going to keep failing us, we're going to have crisis, and if they're not going to sort out the economical problems, XRP can actually become pretty stable currency, because at the moments where our trust to government is going to fail, where are we going to look into? We're going to look at XRPs probably, or Bitcoins. But since Bitcoin is not going to be that much regulated possibly, but Ripple will, we probably will look at XRPs. So it's just my crazy idea, but I think it's very likely to happen. And we could have something we call like monetary freedom, which we don't have at the moment. So by means that I do believe that actually Ripple can create new models, can bring new models, monetary models, economical models to the market. At the moment, we are so much
we are, for example,
with this
buying
capitalism.
A car coverage, house coverage, and many coverages, and probably Ripple will enable us to just have mutual coverage. So something that we call spółdzielnia in Polish, and you will create something like coverage, mutual coverage.
We can all get our all funds, and probably now we're gonna have few $1 million in hands, and we can today invest in like new startup altogether. I know that can create a totally new small societies, ideas, and really can change and move the humanity forward. I mean, we're not paid by Ripple to say that. I mean, we do believe this is one of the best concepts we've seen in a long time. So what I believe, for example, tipping could become a way to rate someone's service. So let's say I invoice you for software development services, and I automatically give you a possibility to pay me more than I asked you for initially. And if you pay me more, that means you're extremely happy with that service. And actually I can publish online how often my customers pay me more than I asked for. And that's a great idea, really, to say, because many people sometimes would put on eBay 5 stars even if the delivery was late a month, because they just want to be nice. But it's very much misleading. But since you pay that money more because you have to pay for it, this could automatically become a great service rating guide for other people. So you can imagine that this will come to the picture. Maybe not.
And Ripple transactions are also public, like in Bitcoin, so you can publicize your tips that you've received.
Or in certain way you want. The escrow, for example, where actually you can imagine that, let's say I'm buying something from Wojtek. Wojtek is from Africa. I never know him. I have no idea whatever he will send me that boat. Yeah.
Give me your money.
So let's say I want to pay him the boat costs 1 Ripple, just for example. I'm actually going to send him 2 Ripples, and he sends me 1 Ripple to the certain account. Now, if he wouldn't fulfill my order, he will lose money. So he actually makes a commitment of 1 Ripple he wants. And to simplify it, we just use 2 and 1 Ripple. Of course, you can use different percentages. But what is possible, since that I received the goods, I'm happy, he's happy, we exchange the money. He receives 2, I receive 1. So eventually I paid him 1. But it's a both-way guarantees that this will happen. And that solves so many problems, like of betting. This solves the problem about paying in advance. This potentially, because it guarantees from both ends that will happen. Otherwise, we'll both use. So there's no point Wojtek should cheat, because
and it's quite happy to implement, since we have really fast and reliable API.
So if, for example, we want to get an agreement within a month, so I receive them, and so we cannot agree with each other, the whole free XRP is going to be paid for the children in Africa. Yeah, we can think of this sort of models, which completely changing the way we think of money today. The subscription with pay what you want. I mean, this is pretty crazy idea. I always dreamed on a books service where actually I pay monthly for a books, but then actually I decide at the end of the month which books I like the most, and a percentage of that money goes to my favorite authors. So today's scenario, let's say you come to the conference, you pay X, and 30% of that X could be given to speakers. Probably won't give anything to us because we crap, but
like a humble bundle.
Yeah, but actually, what can happen? You could at the end of the say, like, I like this speaker, and you decide how you distribute the money. Not only it will motivate us to be really good and really not bore you to the death, but it's also gives you the power to select and to participate in all this rating process. Also, it will helps the organizers to select the next speakers for the next year. So we can all imagine those new models which haven't been there yet because of a lot of MasterCard problems, and we just want to arise your attention to it, that they are possible as of now.
We have the time. The time is
we're
ending.
listening. So actually,
we have
last slide.
Fast forward.
Okay, we're gonna move forward. So last slide is. I want to just also talk about the please payments and thank you payments. Within next 10 years, I can easily imagine with all the wireless, low energy Bluetooth and other probably wireless ideas which come in place. I can easily imagine a situation when I'm hurrying to the conference and I'm late, and I actually want Wojtek is in front of me and I want him to pull over. And instead of horning on him, I can like tip him, let's make 1 zloty and just get a hell of the way because I'm so hurry, and he's guy.
And since the transactions are quite real time,
very quick, real time, and cost me nothing,
I would just move over from the road.
This I call like a please payment, which is really possible. And there also can be thank you payment. I don't know. Let's say you go to the future bus stop and your mobile and it's raining and you hide on in a shade and what happens? You get on your phone, beams. Hey, are you using the shade actually? Because you're close to that shade. I mean, yeah, I am. So the guy who built it with his own money. Like I think. My local community would love to have this side of this little roof, which will help people not to get wet. And, I done it for my own money, but I believe that the people are good. And if they be using it, they will tip me. So I eventually won't make any loss, but I don't have to wait for any decision or anything. I can have the little, low energy Bluetooth, which shows, just tip me 1 zloty if you like it. And I just not got wet. Thanks, 1 zloty. And, I will be much more encouraged not to do fundraising, Kickstarter, do all this hustle. I will just do it. And then hoping that people will return me what I invested.
So in more general words, Ripple is like HTTP for money. So you will just be able to interact with its API anywhere, anyhow, and in really fast and robust way.
So call me crazy. I do believe that at some point the payments could start mean like thank you, thank you for goods and thank you for a service. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Should.
What do you think about U.S. government connected movements? Like I read some time ago that the U.S. government wants to treat World of Warcraft and similar games where you exchange.
Actually, there's one monetary system like that in Europe. European Commission has officially confirmed that the game called Euphoria Online, I don't know if you know that, has its own bank system, and it's officially stated that the money from Euphoria Online is exchangeable for normal money in a normal way, as people do in internet exchanges. But I think that U.S. government won't be so quick as they will. They won't accept such currencies quickly. Especially the cryptocurrencies won't be accepted quickly. I think that currencies like World of Warcraft currency will be accepted faster because there is a company, legal company behind it, and if something goes wrong, your government can just say, hey, you have to be, I don't know, you have to punish you or control you or take over you, like it happens in China when you create an organization and 51% of this organization must be owned by Chinese government. Yeah. Oh, Adam is showing actually how.
This is my wallet and my network of trust with my friends. So visualization. Yes.
In Ripple, as we said, trust equals money. So you can, quite a lot.
For early adopters, that doesn't really matter that much, but.
So you can visualize your trust network. Yeah. Any other questions?
Shoot.
Oh.
You said you could send money via email, just by knowing the email address of the receiver.
Exactly.
This will be available pretty soon. Yes.
This is actually how exactly in the same. It works in exactly the same way as DNS works. This is exactly the same thing. When you are typing an address of your receiver into the wallet, when you want to send them, to send the money.
Instead of this hash, I could easily later type void text.
So this application, this is JavaScript application. It takes away this domain, it strips it from the user, and asks whether user at this domain exists on the server that is responsible for this domain. So it's.
I have internet here. Oh.
It's quite internet is laggy.
I don't have one.
It's working right now, but there's no implementation in JavaScript wallet that is existing right now. Another question here.
Yeah, I may have missed.
One second, one more time.
The question was, how is that different from what you can do with PayPal, for example?
With PayPal?
Because you don't pay over 2% charge.
Because it's PayPal.
And it's PayPal, and you don't have a centralized
it's more than 2%.
company. Yeah, it's 2.5%, I think now. You don't have to trust them for any disputes if you have any, and they never actually sort it right anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
This is huge.
PayPal can suspend your account, for example.
Centralized is you actually you have to fully trust them. And what really happens? People don't trust them. People just use them to take the money, and since they got it, they really withdraw it straight away. The people don't really keep the money in PayPal. That's what the research
Another
shows.
question here.
Yeah, I may have missed something fundamental, but correct me if I'm wrong. If I sign up for Ripple, do I get an account which I need to charge up with money?
We weren't actually so deep into Ripple because it's a very, very complicated, broad.
On technical level or user level? User level.
On user level, you are actually receiving.
You have to charge the money.
Private PGP key, like in Bitcoin, which belongs to the distributed radix tree of the network.
I think that's not user level. I mean,
it's not user level.
Actually, what you're gonna get is actually you get an email address to get the money, or you use your own, or you get your hash. Exactly.
Yeah,
it's exactly like you put the money in the bank, you put the money into the network.
Being a Ripple and
so you put 10 zlotys, you can even use one of probably Llama solutions.
This is all based on trust. What happens if somebody abuses the trust?
That's a very good question. There are a couple of ideas here. First of all, you really use the companies you think you can trust, and you can base on other people's trust, like banks. This is a very similar way. And actually, we already know that in Poland, any gateway will have to be under the KNF supervision, for example. So we have to be listed and he needs to be authorized and need to pay like 20,000 euros deposit and all
In
that.
short words, you
And
will have
there is
to...
also when we mentioned about insurance. Actually, there is a very
Yeah.
great idea that actually all the known gateways going to insure each other in case one of the crazy gateway owners will disappear to Costa Rica or something.
In short words, you will just have to watch who you trust. And in my opinion, and in opinions of Ripple creators, Ripple will just
But they will be joint
redefine the
trust. So-
trust and
True,
how,
but they will
how we
also be going to be
understand
joint
trust.
trust, which is important. Potentially, probably. There are already gateways talking
We
about
have,
it.
we have to finish.
Yeah.
He scams me.
How can I scan you?
You will have to let this person scam you first.
You need to give him your address.
There is no way you can be scammed unless you trust this person. If you trust this person, it's your problem. You've been scammed. Okay, thank you.
Okay.